This Japanese crocodile became a national hero, a TV star, and a local legend loved by kids. And the story of how that happened might be the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. Not only does it show that even a literal dinosaur can be the chillest guy on earth, but it also proves that real friendship has no borders, and sometimes that's what makes it hurt the most. Even though having a crocodile isn't exactly normal in Japan, there's a small town in Hiroshima where seeing a guy walk his crocodile doesn't even count as a special occasion. There, it's just called Tuesday. Nobumitsu Murabayashi has lived in Hiroshima's Kure for most of his life. He used to run a cafe in the city, and every day on his way to work, he walked past a pet shop with a small crocodile in the window. After 6 months of walking by and wondering what would happen to the reptile if it never got sold, he finally went inside with his daughter and asked about it. One thing led to another, and Murabayashi-san found himself leaving the store $500 poorer, but a crocodile richer. They put him in an aquarium at the cafe and tried feeding him goldfish, but he just sat still. Some customers even poked his head to see if he was actually real or not. Eventually, they learned that this wasn't just any crocodile, but a caiman, a species that needed warm temperatures to stay active. So they moved him into the sun, raised the water temperature, and the caiman perked up and started eating. They decided to name him Kaiman-kun, and soon, not only did the cafe become famous as the store with the crocodile, but also Kaiman-kun became an important part of the family. Even though Kaiman-kun was far from being a dog, that didn't stop the family from treating him like one. They brushed his teeth, took him out for walks, and even brought him to the beach with them. Each year, Kaiman-kun grew in size, soon becoming over 2 meters long, but no matter how big or scary looking he became, he always stayed incredibly calm, seemingly only wanting to chill under the kotatsu and nap beside Murabayashi-san. Murabayashi-san's wife wasn't exactly thrilled about the tatami floors getting destroyed by the reptile, but she let it slide. After all, Kaiman-kun was now part of the family. She did have one rule though. Even though he was free to roam around the house, kitchen was to be off limits. And only after a couple of times of shooing him away with the broom, Kaiman-kun quickly understood the rules of the house and learned to stay away from the kitchen. Crocodiles might be smarter than many of us think, since Murabayashi-san swears that Kaiman-kun understands people around him and knows, for example, to go to his outdoor tank whenever they start cleaning the house in order to stay out of their way. And that's not even everything, since Kaiman-kun also has the habit of looking out the window whenever he wants to go for a walk, and he even is smart enough to respond when being called by his name.
Kaiman! って呼んだらもう 100% するんですよ。
本当にこのワニが返事をするのか。
お父さんやってないもん。お父さんがやってない。
行くよ。散歩行こうや。
Even though Kaiman-kun spends most of his time inside, he also has a tank outside he can go for a swim in whenever he feels like it. This tank is apparently made from the same material as the windows in Japanese bullet trains, since the power of his tail is so great that if it was made of anything else, he would immediately break it. And Murabayashi-san knows this very well, since one time when he was out driving with Kaiman-kun in the back, he stepped outside for a moment to talk to an acquaintance of his, but forgot to roll down the windows, which caused Kaiman-kun to break them with his tail to let some air in. But the craziest part about Kaiman-kun's tank isn't the material it's made of, but it's the fact that it needs to be kept at 25 degrees Celsius at all times, even throughout the winter, which in Japan can get quite expensive, and Murabayashi-san has actually said that because of this, their electric bills average to around $800 a month. However, it's a price he's willing to pay to be able to spend time with his buddy, who seemingly only wants hugs, scratches, and to wag his tail. And it's not like Kaiman-kun doesn't do his part in paying the bills, since he does accompany Murabayashi-san in his current workplace, where Kaiman-kun even holds the title of managing director, though his workload doesn't consist of much else than laying around the office. And to be honest, comparing what Kaiman-kun does around the office to some people I work with, I think he's doing a pretty good job. Since Murabayashi-san wasn't shy to bring Kaiman-kun with him outside, people around the town very quickly became used to seeing the two of them walking together. Everyone knew Kaiman-kun to be calm and sweet, which is why most people weren't scared of him. Even those who met him for the first time quickly realized that there was nothing to be scared of. Whenever the two of them went outside, they quickly formed a crowd of people around them wanting to take pictures and pet the famous reptile.
お前どこ行くんだ。
少し怖そうでも観光客に大人気。みんな集まってくるんです。
びっくりしました。東京から遊びに来たけど、広島の一番の思い出がワニになっちゃいそうです。
Once the story got out there that there was a man walking around with a giant crocodile, television stations quickly wanted to hear more about Kaiman-kun and Murabayashi-san's unconventional friendship. One of the first TV shows they were invited to was in Tokyo, and Murabayashi-san was happy to be invited on, but had a hard time figuring out how he would be able to bring his body all the way to Tokyo. Carrying him inside the train wasn't an option, so he decided to do the next best thing, which was to put Kaiman-kun inside a wooden box with wet sponges at the bottom and write giant lizard on the side in case anyone had any questions. After appearing on TV multiple times, Kaiman-kun became a beloved TV star, appearing in many shows throughout the years.
そして散歩が終わると家へ帰るカイマンくん。自宅の前の階段もちゃんと登ります。こうやって見ると可愛いですよね。
Murabayashi-san, on the other hand, became known as the crocodile uncle with the ability to raise the kindest crocodiles. One of his patented secrets was to keep them inside his jacket from their youth so that they became used to people and the human touch. Now we all know that kids absolutely love dinosaurs, and since crocodiles are the closest thing we have to them left, unsurprisingly, many kindergartens around Hiroshima invited Kaiman-kun to come over and play with the kids. It seemed like each week a new kindergarten wanted Kaiman-kun to come out and play, and Murabayashi-san was happy to take him, knowing that the kids loved to have him over.
そして近所の保育園からも遊びに来てほしいとお呼びがかかるんです。
こんにちは。
初めてカイマン君を見た子供たちは
Even though some kids were scared at first, once the braver kids went out to pet him, everyone realized that there was nothing to be scared of. And then the kids went crazy over Kaiman-kun, each one wanted to pet him or ride him. I would even say some of the kids got a bit too comfortable with him, like the ones poking his eyes here, but Kaiman-kun being the sweetest crocodile, as a retaliation all he did was waddle away from the little monsters. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Having a bunch of kids around a crocodile seems insane, and honestly, I felt the same way at first, and I still do to some extent. But here's the thing, Kaiman-kun had never bitten anyone in his entire life. Not one time. Of course, you might say that just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it's not going to happen in the future, and fair enough, but let's be real. Any animal, even your friendliest dog, could snap any moment. The risk is always there. Or that's at least what I could argue, but what do you think? Plus, it's not like he was constantly looking for things to bite, since caimans eat maybe once every 2 weeks, and most of the time they're just chilling. The simple fact is that Kaiman-kun was a gentle giant through and through. And that's part of what made him so special. He defied all the expectations we had for him. But it doesn't matter how special we are, how kind we are, or how loved we are, because in the end, there is something that comes for all of us. And on one cold winter day, under a warm kotatsu, Japan's friendliest crocodile took his final nap.
出会いは43年前、呉市内のペットショップでした。我が子と共に育ったカイマン君は家族同然。おとなしい性格で幼稚園に出向くなど子どもたちに大人気でした。
ほんまにもうありがとうありがとうないね。もう他の言葉ないよ。ほんまありがとう、お前幸せだったか、ありがとう、ほんまに足通ってほんまによかったかって、その言葉だけね。
Murabayashi-san spent most of his life together with Kaiman-kun, and every second he shared with the reptile enriched his life immensely. He has said that one of the greatest gifts Kaiman-kun ever gave to him was the chance to talk to all the wonderful people they met each time they went for their walks together. But another thing Kaiman-kun gave to Murabayashi-san and to the rest of the world was a reminder that looks can be deceiving, and even a cold-blooded crocodile can have the warmest heart.